What's going on, Jets Nation? Welcome to another edition of Weapon Todd, a New York Jets fan broadcast here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I'm your host, CJ the Painkiller DeSimone, and let me introduce you to my squadron. Ladies and gentlemen, to my right, your left, Jimmy the Reaper Jardine. Give it up. And over to my left, your right, our rookie test pilot, Mr. Harrison the Fireball Glazer. Gentlemen, how are you tonight?
I'm freaking good, man. I'm excited. I mean, Connor Rogers is here. Like, this is awesome. I'm happy he's here. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. This is good. Let's talk about them Jets, man.
And speaking of Mr. Rogers, if we're going to bring him in, let's bring him in the right way. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Connor J. Rogers!
Man, I appreciate that. That's one of the better intros I've gotten in a long, long time, guys. That's what I like to hear on a Friday night going into a holiday weekend.
Hey, listen, you know you've been introduced when you've gotten a Weapons Hot intro. That's what our boy, Mr. Kevin Jackson, otherwise known as Spotty Blackman, who is currently MIA right now. I'm sure he will be joining us at some point this evening, would say. So, Connor, first off, tell us, how are you doing? What's going on with you? It's been a long time. The last time that you came on this show was called the Jets Factor. So it was my privilege to interview you then. I didn't get the opportunity for video, but today we've got the opportunity for both audio and video. So it's great. So please tell us what's been going on with you, man.
Yeah, man, I'm doing good. I mean, listen, it's that quiet time of year, right? And it's nice to kind of reset and look at everything, get ready a little bit for next year's college football season and lead into the draft. Of course, go over the offseason and what's coming up for training camp with the New York Jets. So it's that quiet time of year, but I've been busy. I mean, I'm doing the lead NFL draft analyst role for Bleacher Report, covering the entire league, covering the entire draft, which really takes up almost all of my time from at least November leading up to the big event in April. And then, this time of year, it's a little quiet. I don't really like it that way. I like when there's actual football on. But, of course, doing the Badlands podcast, that covers the New York Jets as well. And it's been an exciting last year, I would say, just since the Jamal Adams trade, which I know a lot of people probably didn't like at the time. But since that trade, you can kind of see the direction and the plan from Joe Douglas of this New York Jets team. Now there's actual players on the roster from those picks. There's a lot of hope, I would say, a lot of real hope with a new coaching staff, a retooled and a new look roster, and honestly, just different expectations going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, guys, any questions for Connor?
Go ahead, Harrison.
Harrison totally fireball. He is totally fanboying right now, dude.
I was just thinking, there's plenty of stuff to ask about. I mean, it's exciting right now, man. Like Connor said, this is the time. Like, you guys know how I feel about Joe Douglas. Like, this is the guy, the right man in the organization. Salah's the right coach. He's brought fire back to the team and energy that we haven't seen in a while. The right players are in position. I love so many different guys, but I guess, Connor, my question for you would be, throughout, all of free agency and the draft, is there like one or two players beside obviously, the quarterback that you felt were like your favorite additions?
Yeah, I think the Carl Lawson one is the notable one to me because of what this defense wants to do, right? It's basically a defense predicated on the front four getting home to the quarterback, and then everything else falls to place. And like anything else, without the first step, plan A of that happening, everything else falls apart. And quite frankly, coming into this year or coming into that offseason, you looked at the Jets' holes, and it was interesting. They have a ton of talent on the interior of the defensive line, starting with one of the best interior defensive linemen in the entire league in Quinnen Williams, and a lot of rising guys, right? Foley Fatukasi's been a nice role player as a run stopper recently. John Franklin Myers has been a really, really nice find. And then they go in and you look at the edge situation and there's just nothing there. Quite frankly, Jordan Jenkins never took that next step into being a double-digit sack player, turned to more of an edge setting kind of player. So they go out and they give who I thought truly might have been the best pure pass rusher entering his prime on the free agent market in Carl Lawson, $15 million a year. And he's the type of free agent where, you have certain guys, right, that they're only interested in going certain places, or they're vice versa. There's only a certain amount of teams interested in them. And I think with Carl, he was in a unique situation where what his skill set does, clearly creating pressure from the outside in one-on-one situations, every team wanted a piece of that pie. And the fact that the Jets were able to sell him on the plan that Robert Salah has is a huge step, because he's going to make Quinnen Williams better. And in return, Quinnen Williams is going to make him better. He hasn't had a double-digit sack season yet. He had 8.5 as a rookie, former fourth-round pick, who I looked at as a first-round talent, but had some medical information that really dropped him down draft boards, and he turned into a great player for Cincinnati. So for the Jets to get him going into his prime, I mean, it turns around the entire defense. It takes a little bit less pressure off a very, very young group of corners. It clearly makes the opposition's day much longer and much more brutal when the quarterback has somebody like in his face like him. And then you throw in Sheldon Rankins into that group. This is a really, really exciting group to watch. I think Robert Salah is going to get the most out of all of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm extremely excited about this group. But again, I'm also cautiously optimistic. And the reason for my optimism is because of the fact that this team is still a 2-14 football team. And we had to overhaul quite a bit of the roster. And also, I'm sorry to be the pessimist, but that it actually comes down to straight away. And I'm sure that both Jimmy and Harrison will completely agree with you when I talk about this. It's basically that players who sign contracts here have a tendency to come to the New York Jets and suck. Okay, we saw it with Trumaine Johnson, Muhammad Wilkerson, great rookie year. Mediocre sophomore year, got a big contract, and then all of a sudden just sucked all the way through because he decided he didn't need to play anymore. Yeah. We saw the same thing with Sheldon Richardson, and he was a draft pick.
Yeah, okay, we saw that. If you think about it, it comes down to the GM, that's giving him the money. Like, I remember I made fun of that. The best example is, like, we gave the same amount of money to Trumaine Johnson that basically the Patriots gave to, like, Stephon Gilmore, like one of the best corners in the league in Stephon Gilmore. It's crazy. Like, we kept making bad decisions, but I feel like Joe Douglas, he makes the right decisions. Like, he's given the right money to the right guys. Like, even Lawson and Corey Davis, they're not making that much money, especially for what they bring to the table.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's really the part that I'm getting at. So, Connor, I want to set the table for you a little bit over here, because I definitely have some burning questions. I'm like super excited that we have you on, because dude, I have so many questions, and especially for you with your connections and your sources, you probably hear a lot more stuff than we do. So, tell me overall, what is your assessment of the brand new squadron that's going to be taking place, or that's going to be taking the field in 2021?
Well, I think this is going to be you could start to see Joe Douglas's blueprint on the field, right? You heard about it for so long, and I think that's frustrating for fans when they're watching a 2-win football team out there, because they're hearing so long, Joe wants to build it in the trenches, Joe wants to do this. Quite frankly, it just takes a lot of time, and that's why he wouldn't come here for less than a 6-year deal. So he gets that 6-year deal and says, well, now I have the time to do the things that I want. And if the coach that I didn't hire doesn't do a good job here, my contract gives me enough security that I can go out and get the coach that I want. And we've seen that come to fruition as well. So I think when you look at this team, they're going to be a team that a lot of teams eventually just don't want to play against. And maybe that's not there yet, but down the line, when you look at the two bookend tackles in Mekhi Becton and Morgan Moses, they're two of potentially the best run blockers in the entire AFC. And I know a lot of people will probably bat an eye towards that when they think that with a player that only played 1 year in Mekhi Becton. But he had those kinds of flashes that he's just too big and too strong, and honestly too quick at that size for any linebacker to handle, for any defensive back to handle. But a lot of hand-in-the-dirt defensive linemen struggled against him as well as a pure drive blocker or a blocker on the move out in front. So I think it's pretty clear that they want to run the football, and they will let you know they're going to run the football, and they'll still say, hey, good luck stopping it. So that was a big thing, number one, for me, and something that I think they'll do successfully this year. And then it opens up number two, and that's the play-action passing game with Zach Wilson and a contested catch kind of player like Corey Davis, or a deep threat like Elijah Moore. course, you still have Denzel Mims, who's great in contested catch situations as well, but he's got to stay on the field. That's the big thing with Denzel Mims. Keelan Cole, probably signed as the poor man's version of that, right? A guy that's a little smaller, but plays that tough physical brand of football on the outside, has experience on the inside. So I think when it comes down to it, that's what they want to be on offense, guys. They want to be a run-first, smash-mouth kind of team that run can open up the deep ball in the play-action passing game. And I kind of got into it with the defense. They're going to be attacking front four. And in that cover three, Robert Salah plays a lot of cover three, a lot of quarters coverage. Basically, they don't want to give up the big play, and they want the front four to do the dirty work to get home and shut down that kind of play. So I look at the Jets this year. Am I sitting here expecting playoffs? I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think the roster is, it's starting to get there with the names you see on paper. But you got to remember, these guys need reps at the NFL level. The draft class from 2020, they didn't even get a preseason. We haven't seen James Morgan play. We didn't really get to see anything from Zuniga. Ashton Davis had a learning curve kind of year. A lot of people are down on Ashton Davis, and I think that's really unfair. So I think that those guys had a very strange transition to the NFL. The 2021 class, we need to see reps from them as well. So I'm not expecting playoffs, but I think you'll see a competitive team. Can they get to 7 wins? Can something go their way and they get to 8? That really would not shock me at all for this young New York Jets team with a new coaching staff.
Yeah, that's something. I'm actually glad that you brought up Jabari Zuniga, because he's somebody who now is in the focus of a spotlight of a New York Post article where he blatantly came out and he said, one thing that I learned is that consistency is key. And I've had a couple of different debates with different fans about the fate of Jabari Zuniga, and a lot of people are still comparing him to Ja'Kai Polite. Now, for somebody who has watched Jabari Zuniga pretty much his entire college career, because I live here in Central Florida, I'm a Gators fan by marriage, and also, believe it or not, getting the opportunity to watch the Gators play, I get the opportunity to see a lot of these guys and how they transition before they're even considered for the NFL draft. And then when you take a look at certain players and the way that they play, and you figure out, watching your pro team, how would this guy fit in your system? And 2 guys, which the Jets drafted, Michael Piron and Jabari Zuniga, Harrison can tell you, because he's not fans of either one of them. Not that he personally hates them. Not that he personally hates them. Let me rephrase and set the table. But he feels like that they should not have been drafted where they were drafted. Like, he feels like that Jabari Zuniga should not have been drafted at the end of the 3rd round, and that Michael Piron should not have been drafted in the 4th round. Okay, they feel like that he feels if they were drafted lower, he would feel a little bit more comfortable because the 2 of them are still very raw. Here is my side to the argument with that. You had a meth head for a head coach who was horrible at personnel decisions, horrible at managing personnel, and his entire offense was based around Frank Gore. That's number 1. Number 2, you had a rookie running back who only tallied 60 carries in 16 games, played hurt, was told to go out there and play hurt instead of being taken care of the way he should have. That's number 2. And number 3, swinging back over to Jabari Zuniga, you have a defensive end who was asked to play outside linebacker, in which something that he was not asked to do at the University of Florida. He's a 4-3 down lineman. He plays his best when he is on the edge and his hand in the dirt. And I'm sure that you've seen plenty of tape of Jabari Zuniga. I know I have. And you know what? When the kid is on, the kid is a beast. Okay? So my question to you is, I know that we need Zuniga to step up. I know that we need Michael Piron to step up. What do you see? Completely unbiased opinion. Not these 2 idiots I got sitting next to me. Okay? Because they've already had their say. So
I like Zuniga.
And I don't hate the kid. I don't wish bad intent on him.
Listen, I think when it comes down to it, it's, CJ, you're onto it with Zuniga in terms of scheme fit. I think it's interesting valuation for me, because I remember that year, I think I had him 88th and they took him 79th. So when he came off the board, I knew the Jets needed edge. And it was like, okay, this kind of makes sense in terms of where the players projected. And the fact that the thing that didn't make sense is, are they going to use him the right way? Because that's a mistake the old regime made with almost every player.
Say it louder for the people in the back, Connor, please, because there are people in this fan base that have their heads so far up their ass they can't see straight.
And I'll say this: the thing with Zuniga is, you look at the 2018 film, and I thought he was really good. And I think 2019 he got off to an insanely hot start, and then he got hurt. And I think the problem is, he dealt with injuries last year as a rookie for the Jets. So you wonder if he can stay on the field. You can see the role there. I agree. Hand in the dirt, pretty explosive player. Not exactly a twitchy, bendy kind of player, but can he get off the ball and get his hands and win with leverage? I think that's something he could do. And I think he could just beat you with pure speed off of the snap. But once again, can he turn the corner? That's not really his game. Is he a twitched up kind of guy? It's not really his game. So I think when you look at it, there is a chance that he has a real bounce back kind of year, because this is the right scheme for him. What I'll say is, it's got a lot of competition, right? We know Lawson's written in ink. That's not really anything to get worked up over. But Vinny Curry being signed here as that third down specialist is kind of what you hope that Zuniga eventually could be. So I think Vinny Curry's into a really nice role here. Bryce Huff, I thought, flashed a lot more for an undrafted guy, and I thought he should have been drafted, quite frankly. I had him in the 6th, so nothing crazy, but I really liked Bryce Huff. And then you get to P. Ryan. That's a pick that I personally was a little disappointed by, because, I thought it was early. Once again, I thought he was a 6th-round player. They took him in the 4th. And I like that he does everything okay, but nothing exceptionally well. And I also don't like that. I think the Jets kind of had a lot of guys in their roster like that. Where Le'Veon Bell was in his career, it's kind of the guy he was. He wasn't very bursty, but he was reliable in pass pro with good hands, and he was pretty tough in between the tackles. Frank Gore, a little bit of the same thing. P. Ryan, kind of the young version of that. Now you look at a scheme that is moving towards a more wide zone rushing attack. I do question if he has the overall burst to factor into that. But what I'll say with P. Ryan is, if he can win a spot on this roster, it's going to be because of how reliable he can be in pass protection, and he can be catching the ball when he's healthy. And quite frankly, Ty Johnson, a little bit of a wild card. I know they like him a lot.
Right.
Michael Carter, we know he's going to have a role on this team, but you could see where there's some kind of role there for P. Ryan. So I understand the skeptics and the doubters and the questions around those picks, because I think I had questions about them as well. But you never write guys off after 1 year. You simply don't do that in the NFL.
Thank you.
They were draftable players, and all I could say is, they have a lot to prove in this year's training camp, because there's a lot more bodies in there around them that can play, that the coaches know, but they definitely got a shot.
Yeah. I'm with you, Connor.
I wanted to say on P. Ryan that I am higher on P. Ryan than a lot of people are.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I will second that.
And primarily because of Michael Carter, because LaMichael P. Ryan and his short yardage, just bull rush style, strong type of a runner. He's not going to get to the edge like you were saying. He's not that kind of shifty guy, but he pairs really nicely with what Michael Carter can do. And I think that's a really good double-edged sword in the backfield if those two get into a rhythm and start going, because you can have Michael Carter show a wide zone look, and then all of a sudden that handoff is to P. Ryan up the left side instead of a run to the right behind Moses. You know what I mean?
I think you're on it. Yeah, I think you're – and let's not forget, this team will just ditch the inside ground attack, right? We know that's – and Michael Carter could do that, but you're not going to have Michael Carter take 30 hits a game. He doesn't have that kind of body type for the NFL level. I mean, he didn't do it at UNC. Split carries with Javonte Williams, who was drafted ahead of him. And Ty Johnson, we've never seen as a lead back, although we like his ability as a runner. And then, of course, Tevin Coleman, who's not been healthy for a long time. You like his familiarity with the coaching staff, but you're not going to bet on the guy to play all 17 games this year. So, it kind of makes me wonder with the Jets. Is there a reason they have all these running backs in the fold? You could see a scenario where, there's going to be practice squad guys, and quite frankly, they're all going to have to play at some point during the season.
Well, that's actually a question that I'd like to ask you, because I can't remember where I heard it from. I almost could swear it was Bleacher Report. But there was somebody that was saying that Tevin Coleman is likely going to be I heard somebody somewhere say that they think Tevin Coleman is likely going to be more of a slot receiver rather than a running back for most of the season.
That would not shock me. Now, what I'll say with what the 49ers have done with him in the past, they can motion him out from the backfield to the slot. And yeah, you're creating mismatches. And I think it's something he does very, very well. And I think LaFleur has been around him. Let's not forget, before San Francisco, they were together in Atlanta for a long time. So this is somebody that LaFleur knows very, very well. And quite frankly, guys, something that I've noticed is I think that they would like Ty Johnson to eventually be what Tevin Coleman was. I think he's that kind of player where the long speed is really good. The pass catching can come along. I know Ty Johnson had a really nice, grab for a touchdown, catch and run touchdown against the Rams last year, one of the Jets' 2 wins. So I think when you look at it overall, I could see them using him in different ways, and also to preserve his body, where you just don't want him taking those hits on the inside over and over again.
Mm-hmm. That was a big take of mine from last season, actually, because if you looked at the numbers, and that's what I did, I noticed that Ty Johnson and Josh Adams as well, in the games they played, like their averages were high. They were averaging high yards per carry, receptions, yards per reception. It was all high and good. Just Frank Gore was getting all the carries. Like Frank Gore was getting every carry, but when they played well, and that was evident in the Raider game. So I really do like Ty Johnson a lot, and I think there's a lot of potential there.
All those high yards per carry and all those high numbers in the previous coaches, like, well, we can't have that.
It was crazy, bro. Like I would see like 5, they'd literally be averaging, like I had the numbers, like 5 yards per carry, but they'd get like 1.2 carries a game. Like that's what you were seeing. Like high averages, good numbers, but just not getting any opportunity whatsoever. And it's like after the Raider game, it's like, well, they did great, so now we should bench them. They're young guys, they're playing well. They shouldn't play anymore.
Right.
Well, it's frustrating. Yeah. It's frustrating because you look at the ground attack last year, and it's like the running backs, or I should say Frank Gore, left a lot of meat on the table. That's really as simple as it is.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wasn't there. You look at the holes Mekhi Becton was opening, and even the guards, and they had quite the rotating door at guard last year. They were very bad in pass pro. They were pretty good run blockers for the most part. So the running backs this year, there should be a noticeable difference.
Everything. I mean, the running backs, the wide receivers, but like the offensive line, like you just mentioned, man. I mean, massive upgrades. Morgan Moses, 86 run block grade last year. Dude's a beast like Mekhi. I think between the two of them, that's a top 5 tackle combination right there in the NFL between those two guys. I mean, Becton should have been a Pro Bowler last year.
And I'll say what excites me, too, that's under the radar a little bit is they can steal a page from Seattle's playbook a couple years ago. George Fant as a 6th offensive lineman, with his athleticism, you can get very, very creative because you can motion him. You can get him out in front on the move against linebackers and DBs. I think the Jets are going to be okay with teams knowing they're going to run the ball, but they're going to say, you don't know how we're going to run the ball, how big, strong, and athletic we are, and the way we're going to be able to do it. So I think an underrated part of the Moses signing is the fact that you have a piece like Fant to be that swing tackle that will play in jumbo sets.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, man. Like people are like, he's making so much money, but you have the money. Like there's no award. There's no award at the end of the season for you have this much money. Here's the trophy. Yeah, like that.
Pay out the fans.
So like, who cares if he's a high-paid swing tackle? You can afford it. And like you said, I like the idea of using him as like an inline blocking tight end. You mentioned a guy like Tyler Kroft, who's like legitimately one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. Like offensive linemen praise his blocking ability, which is really impressive.
Right. One of the biggest things, and Connor, I really want to ask you about this because I'm very curious to get your thoughts on the offensive line. With the overhaul that's now being done, you have Mekhi Becton coming off an injury, definitely coming back. They drafted Elijah Vera Tucker. Okay, now they signed Morgan Moses, which pretty much makes George Fant a piece that you can move around anywhere. Okay, do you see a Connor McDermott or possibly Cameron Clark now cracking this lineup? And of course, we can't forget about the undrafted free agent that they ended up bringing in, Tristan Hodge, who I understand. I think it's actually pronounced Hodge, but he supposedly had been turning heads a little bit during OTAs. So, in your opinion of the offensive line, what exactly do you see?
Well, I think We know 4 of the starters are in an ink, and we feel good about that. We know Becton, assuming he's healthy, is going to play left tackle. We know AVT is going to be the left guard. We know McGovern's going to be back at center. And I think he'll have a bounce back year, McGovern. I think with better guard playing next to him and in a better offense, he'll look a lot better. And then right guard, I'm assuming Van Roten is going to start. It could go a lot of ways. I mean, Cam Clark could have a good camp. Alex Lewis just has 9 lives. You never really know how that's going to go. And then Moses is going to play right tackle and Fant's your swing guy who realistically is probably going to start at some point if Becton has those little injuries that keep him off the field at some point. So that's how I project the locks, right? And then the backup situation gets really interesting on what they want to keep. Obviously, they signed Dan Feeney, kind of your backup interior player. He can play center and guard. Most NFL teams like having a guy like that so they don't have to carry a guy that's only a center as the backup. The only time you do that is if you drafted one and you want to ease him along. That makes a lot of sense. But in that case, when you bring in a veteran, he's got to be able to play both. So Feeney could be a backup guard, backup center. Cam Clark's still got to earn that roster spot. We just haven't seen him, right, guys? It's a giant wild card. And then the real other one is Chuma Edoga, because there's been flashes in small spots, but when he's had, some longevity in games or had to be a full game starter, he's really, really struggled in pass pro as well. And I don't know if the run blocking will ever really, the green light will ever come on as that kind of run blocker. So I think he would be on the bubble as well. So it's a very interesting group. You feel good. You always feel good when almost your 5 are locked in, right? And I'm saying Van Roten's a lock. It could go a lot of different ways, but I think they feel good about him starting at right guard or good enough coming out of the gate. And then you're kind of figuring out the pieces behind them. But Fant and Feeney, we know are going to be here. We expect things out of Cam Clark. And it's a unit that, let's be real, every NFL team during the year faces a couple offensive line injuries. They have guys behind them that have actually started and played in a lot of games. The Jets it feels like they haven't had that in a long time.
Do you feel like that they have enough depth to get them through the season? Because, Connor, you know as well as I do, this offensive line has been an absolute sieve for the past decade. Mike McCagnon completely neglected it. John Idzik was another one who completely neglected it. And Joe Douglas is essentially cleaning up the mess from 2 different GMs that have been here. And if you go and take a look at the money that both John Idzik and Mike McCagnon had, they had altogether about almost a quarter of $1 billion to fix this offense, to fix this football team. Never mind the offensive line, never mind the offensive weapons, never mind the defense. The entire football team. Can you say with a sense of certainty, and yes, I'm calling upon not only your fandom, but also your ultimate wisdom, okay? Can you say that we are finally on the right track?
Absolutely on the right track. If you asked me, are they a top 5 unit? Are we getting back to 2009, 2010? They're not there yet, and nobody should expect them to be. That was a unit that, they had 2 homegrown pieces that are 2 of the best to ever put on the green and white, and Nick Mangold and DeBrickashaw Ferguson, mixed with somebody that had Super Bowl caliber experience at center and right tackle and Damian Woody. Same thing, Alan Faneca, Super Bowl kind of experience at guard. They were stacked right through it, of course. Now, you look at this unit, you could start to see those steps in the right direction, whether it was Mekhi Becton being taken in the first round, whether it's Elijah Vera Tucker taken in the first round. That might be your brick and Mangold for the next 10 years, 8 years, whatever it may be, where you look at that left side of the offensive line and go, we have a foundation here that's going to be here for a long time. So I think when you look at it, and even going back to your point, CJ, Tannenbaum really let that group go towards the end of his tenure. He was great, with Mangini, they started to really build it the right way. And then Rex kind of put on the finishing touches there. And then, unfortunately, after some guys retired and went down, they never recouped those pieces with even mediocre kind of players. Wayne Hunter could not get the job done. Vlad Dukas was one of the worst Jets draft picks that I can remember of the last 12 years or whatever it may be. So they had Joe Douglas had a lot of cleaning up to do from pretty much a decade of ineptitude of building the offensive line. But you got to look at it like this. As long as he's healthy, we feel like Mekhi Becton was a hit as a pick. And saying as long as he's healthy is a really, tough thing to say out there. But as long as he can stay healthy, we know the talent is there and the production is there from one year. Elijah Vera Tucker, I feel very, very good about. Morgan Moses, it sounds like from Jeremy Fowler, they wanted him to take a 2-year deal. He only wanted the 1-year deal to stay flexible.
Which is interesting.
It is very interesting. If I was
Especially
the
it is
Jets,
like you would think, if you're almost 30 years old, you would want to cash out, and get the money. That's what I thought was kind of weird.
But the guy,
I think he's
hasn't missed
betting
a
on
game
himself
in
because
6
next year.
years. So he knows I'm going to show up and be in shape and play every week, and that's what I do. Even when I'm hurt, I play. Morgan Moses would be somebody I would want here for the next 3 years, and I think that's something they should revisit in the middle of the season or after the season and really find a way to get it done. So you're going into the draft and saying, we really just need our right guard. And if we want to take a center and move on from McGovern, that's something we can do. And now we feel good about our window in front of Zach for 5 years, 4 years, or whatever it may be. So they're on the right track. They have high-end talent. Becton's a high-end talent. ABT will be a high-end talent. I feel good about saying that. I really feel confident in saying that. Moses is a proven player, a proven top 12 right tackle in the league. That most importantly, one of his best aspects of his game is his reliability of being out there every single Sunday. And like I said, I think McGovern will come back to where the player he was, just with better coaching and better play around him. You're never going to be perfect. Right guard to me is still a hole, but they're just going to have to find a way to minimize the effect that weak spot has. So it's on the right track, and it's good to see them using legitimate draft capital and some free agency dollars to make sure this is not a question mark in front of a 22-year-old quarterback this year.
Okay.
Good conversation to have, though, because last year we were having discussions, everybody was talking and panicking about which Band-Aids we were going to find to fix multiple holes on the offensive line. And now everybody's mad that George Fant is going to be a swing tackle making $7 million or whatever.
Who cares? Right? Who cares?
That's what I said. Yeah, that's what I said.
I'm just saying that if we're arguing with each other as Jets fans over having too much
offensive line,
I'm okay.
Yeah, that's a conversation I'll take day in and day out. If this offensive line can go from worst in the league to like 17th or 16th, because basically if this offensive line can go from being the worst in the league to even middle of the road, somewhere between 17 and maybe 14, that could easily translate into 2 to 3 more wins, and we'll take a boatload of pressure off of Zach Wilson. Because then he's not going to have to get into this mode that we unfortunately clicked Sam Darnold in having to play hero ball all the time.
Yeah. And CJ, you remember, when you talk about offensive line, I think it's even better than that. Like, I'm really excited. Like Connor said, it's such a testament to what Joe Douglas has done with the quality he's put together and fixed. He turned that offensive line around. Mackay and Morgan, like we said, that him, ABT, those are 3 studs on a 5-person offensive line. And we talked about, Connor mentioned the lines that were solid in the past with Mangold and DeBrickashaw. Well, they also had Woody and Cologne and Faneca at a point. We now have 3 legit studs. And you mentioned, ABT is going to be great. Man, anyone who thinks we gave up too much for ABT, they don't know who ABT is. Like, this guy's like the quality of like when the Colts took Quinn and Nelson. Like, that's the quality of guard we're talking about here. What you mentioned with Ben Roten at right guard, I think is interesting. I definitely see him as the presumptive starter right now. What's interesting is I liked him when we got him because, he's the local Long Islander. He was average with the Panthers for like 4 years. And I was like, well, like CJ said, being the worst offensive line, having an average guy isn't bad. So he wasn't that good last year. It'll be interesting to see what he brings. Clark is an interesting thing because as Jimmy knows, there's a lot of offensive linemen that we both liked later in the draft. And I felt that because Joe didn't take any later offensive linemen, that made me think that maybe he really likes a guy like Cameron Clark, that he thinks that guy's going to step up as a 4th-round pick.
Right. So, all right. So Connor, one more thing. I want to ask you about the backup quarterback position. This is something that, we've kind of kicked around. Could you see the Jets possibly getting a veteran once we get a little bit more into training camp? Obviously more cuts are going to be cutting down. Do you see them bringing on a veteran? Do you see them making a trade or keeping their eye out for possibly Nick Foles being cut from Chicago?
I think with Joe Douglas's relations or past in Chicago and just understanding that they have a logjam there, right? They got 3 quarterbacks. Teams are not going to carry 2 vets with that kind of money and a rookie they're trying to develop at the same time. It feels like they know if they need to go the Nick Foles route, they can probably make it happen. The question is, how much money is Chicago going to absorb in that situation? How much money are you willing to take on? Beyond that, how badly do you need to do it, right? You have to wonder, I know Nick Foles has had some great runs, some legendary runs. Is there a lot left in the tank that he really wants that kind of role on his shoulders where the rookie struggles or the rookie goes down and he's the guy? Does he want that anymore? I don't know. I don't know the answer to those things, but that's something the Jets need to do their research on with Nick Foles for the dollar that he's being paid right now. And quite frankly, I think, I know James Morgan, for whatever reason, is one of the most hated picks from Jets fans' eyes.
I never got that. I never understood that.
I liked him in college. I know he struggled and then he transferred and he had some really nice years. And I think that he fits the offense really well. He's a guy that can get out of the pocket and throw the ball down the field, which is something they really like, especially off play action. I think they'd like to see what he has. And I think that the only way you could do that is get him camp reps, get him preseason reps, and you might look at it and go, we like what we saw from James Morgan. Is it perfect? No. Is it bad enough that we need to go react and make some external move? They probably don't feel they need to hit that button right now. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. I'm not saying James Morgan's the answer. He might have a horrible camp. He might get cut. But I saw enough from college where I would want to see what he has and develop that long-term backup behind Zach, where you don't have to dedicate any money to that resource. You don't have to dedicate any draft picks. He was a draft pick, a 4th-round draft pick. Let's see what he has.
Yeah, I'm glad we're actually talking about the backup quarterbacks because, Connor, I wanted to get your opinion as well because I think I might be the only one thinking this. And again, as like fans, we don't get that much from OTAs and mini camp. Like we only see so much, like what we can see from the media. But like I didn't hate the James Morgan pick. I felt like, at the time it made sense. Flacco was a question mark at the time. The kid's got an unbelievable deep ball, like one of the best deep balls I've ever seen. But from what I saw in the mini camp, I kind of liked Mike White a little bit. Like I felt like his footwork and presence in the pocket and agility was better. And I just remember when I think about Mike White in the draft, I just remember they couldn't stop talking about his football IQ. Like they just said, this kid has an unbelievable football IQ and just understands football so well, like to the point where he can say plays back to you that you wouldn't even think of. So I was just curious what you thought about that because everyone's talking about Morgan, but I might be thinking Mike White.
And maybe they do like him. And guys, what I'll come back to is if Zach Wilson gets hurt, this team's not going anywhere, right? It doesn't matter if it's James Morgan. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, if it's Nick Foles. I know a lot of people will disagree with that. I don't think Nick Foles is taking the Jets anywhere at this point of his career. And I think about 28 NFL teams would say the same thing, right? Like when you look at it, when it comes down to it, Ryan Fitzpatrick's not a backup anymore. He's not. He's starting for the Washington football team. So it's not like where you look at Miami last year and you go, hey, if, they moved on to Tua, but then when Tua didn't work out right away, Fitzpatrick closed and won them a lot of games. Teams don't have that situation. They really don't. They trot out these guys that they're not starters for a reason. They're not looked at as starters for a reason. I mean, look at the Dallas Cowboys last year when Dak Prescott went down. Even though they had Andy Dalton, what difference did it make? It didn't matter. So it's, would you like to see the insurance, like a Luke Falk situation where you can actually go out and maybe compete? Yes, I agree with that. And if Morgan or James or Mike White can't do that for you, then you need to look for an external option. But the reality of the situation is, and a lot of teams, they won't admit it to the public, but they would admit it in private. If something happens to the starter, it's not going to be a good situation. It's not going to be a playoff situation about 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
I'm with you, Connor. I was on Green Bean show last night and we were talking about this, and I said there's no reason to spend the cap money on a vet who's going to sit for, like you just said, if Zach Wilson goes down, then playoffs are out of the question, or a solid record of what I think could happen is out of the question. So I don't feel we need to spend the money. I think we're good with these guys that we have. Just get them in the preseason. And if there's one good thing we can take away from 2020 is that we can finally shut down the we don't need a preseason conversations that happen every year.
That's
because
crazy.
We all know.
Spot on.
We all know that preseason is vital to the development and the longevity of these players because you got to start getting into that game speed. But just get Morgan on the field, get Mike White on the field. I don't care who they say is number 2 because the team is going to say who is the best player in that depth chart. And whoever it is, I'm okay with. Just put the best player on the field and let's go. Let's continue to be smart with the cap, and that means not signing a vet who, no matter what they say, in the back of their head is like, I want to be the starter. I don't want to be the backup. So I'd rather If anything, throw a bag of money at Josh McCown and bring him back as a quarterback assistant coach. That's what I want.
And one last thing on this, it's different team by team basis. I should never say that, your quarterback gets hurt and you're doomed. I think it's unique where the Jets know what they are right now, right? Now, you look at a team like the Bills, Josh Allen plays a pretty wild brand of football, great player, but a wild brand of football, takes a lot of hits. If Josh Allen goes down for 3 weeks, you feel like Mitch Trubisky might be able to go 1-2, 2-1, depending who you're playing, and keep you in your playoff trajectory that you're on, or playoff rate. You don't have this spell of 0-3 or 0-5, or that's different because the Bills are a team that almost made it to the Super Bowl last year. So if we're having this conversation about the Jets next year, where the Jets better have playoff expectations next year, not this year, then you need to go to a backup where, hey, this guy can keep our head above water for 3 games. But this year, they're just not thinking like that.
Yeah, no counter. I 100%. I see what you're saying. Like, it's big, like you're saying, what we see is we're not seeing a system that's been in place for years or a while where, a quarterback is what we've called before a system quarterback that can be plugged and played. We're seeing a rookie head coach, a rookie offensive coordinator, a rookie quarterback. They're going to be building this offense around Zach Wilson, which is why, like you said, you see some quarterbacks go down, it falls apart because it's not that great system that anyone can be plugged into. It's an offense that's built around the strengths of that quarterback. You bring someone else in, they have different strengths. They have different things they do well.
All right, so Connor, one more thing that I want to touch on. I know that the time that we have you tonight is very limited, so I'm trying to jam a lot of questions and throw a lot at you in the short amount of time we have you. The New York Jets secondary, again, that's something that has to be a concern. So tell me, were you at all shocked by the fact that Joe Douglas and Robert Salah are pretty much ready to roll with the rookies and the second-year holdovers?
I wasn't shocked that they didn't spend a premium draft pick on a corner. I was shocked they didn't spend any money on one. I think that's what jumps out to me is that, you don't bring in a slot guy like that's a very cost-effective option, whether it was, a solid guy from the 49ers or whether it's bring back Brian Poole, which could happen next week for all we know, but he's still a free agent. But I think when you look at it, that really surprised me. Is this a team that's going to draft a first-round, second-round corner every year? No, they're just not going to value corner like that. They don't. You look at San Francisco with Salah there, they didn't do it there either. I mean, even sure, they went out and paid Richard Sherman, but there wasn't, a 25-year-old Richard Sherman. Or they drafted Akello Weatherspoon. It wasn't a first-round pick. They don't do that. That's not what they're going to do. So I think they prioritize other needs. They're going to build the defense from the ground up. They're going to build it, front to back. And that's why they went out and paid Carl Lawson, Sheldon Rankins, Vinny Curry. They're probably going to pay Quinnen Williams when he's contract extension eligible. Yep. That's what they're going to focus on. Even the middle of their defense, they cared more about. They went for a reclamation project in Gerard Davis. They obviously are sticking with C.J. Mosley. They drafted 2 converted strong safeties that are going to move to weak side linebacker and Jamian Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin. They just don't prioritize corner like that until the end. And it's going to be a long year at corner. I'm not ever going to sugarcoat that. These guys are going to take their lumps. When the front four doesn't get home, they're going to get beat. They're day 3 picks and undrafted rookies, and it's crazy. Besides, Bryce Hall was a day 3 pick just a year ago, and he's like the one guy we feel okay about. So I think when you look at it like that, it's going to be a long year at corner for them, but they also know that they can mask that position more than most teams can with the style of their defense. And they just had too many other needs where, I explained it like this for a long time. There's a chain link reaction, right? So they didn't get ABT. Well, if they didn't draft a left guard and it's Alex Lewis or whoever it is, it's bad. We know it's bad. That guard being bad is going to make Zach Wilson bad. But not drafting a corner and the corner is just bad, you shrug your shoulders. It's not, it stinks that the team's going to give up points that way, but it's not hurting someone else's development like the face of your franchise. So I think it came down to a decision that they had to try to, eliminate as much risk and effect across the roster as much as possible. And that's how they came to that.
Yeah. I also think you nailed it, with the defense being, the way they gear it, the way taking the pressure off the cornerback. Because if you look at Robert Saleh's defenses, ever since he's been with the 49ers, they're always consistently top of the NFL in quarterback hurries. Even last year when they had guys like Bosa hurt, Ford was out, they were still top of the NFL. A couple of years, they were top 3. So, yeah, his defenses are designed to get into the quarterback, causing disruption, taking the pressure off the cornerbacks. But you mentioned like the slot cornerback, man. I think outside we have maybe some issues to work out, like who's going to be that second guy. I think it's an interesting competition between Austin, Dunn, Pinnock, maybe Lamar Jackson. Be interesting to see who steps up. But it's slot, man. I think Michael Carter's looked really good. I really like the potential there. And Javelin Guidry last year came in for Brian Poole, didn't miss a beat. Eccles looked good a little bit. I feel like people are sleeping on us a little with that slot corner ability.
Yeah, I think they like to traditionally just develop these positions, this coaching staff. I think that they want to, find a diamond in the rough. Is Pinnock, Eccles, and Carter going to hit? No, all 3 aren't going to hit. Realistically, 2 of the 3 aren't going to hit. If you can get one of those dart throws to be an average starter, that's a win in today's NFL and how the draft pool works. And I think they just believe in themselves that they can find the right traits and hit on one of those guys.
And I think it just comes down to that front 7. If the front 7 does its job, I played corner in high school, and just if the front guys do their job, it makes our job in the back that much easier. And I think that it's a really strong sign of confidence, I think, from Salah and Joe Douglas, that they're not going out trying to find a vet or something like that to fill a hole. I think I like the fact that they're putting the trust in the kids. It's the same as the James Morgan and Mike White. Just let them play.
Throw them into the fire. See what you have.
And look at that front 7. I mean, like you said, kind of Carl Lawson, man, the numbers there beside the sack, like the pressures, the hurries, the hits, it's ridiculous. His numbers are insane. We talked about what Quinnen is. I actually had John Franklin Myers on my podcast on Monday, had an interview with him. He's a great guy. He actually surprised me, but he was talking about all of them. He said, yeah, Quinnen's good. He said all of them are good, but what surprised me was he said Vinny Curry has the fastest get off he's ever seen in his life, which blew my mind. He's like, don't sleep on Curry, like even though that guy's getting up there.
Yeah, Vinny Curry is somebody who the Jets are actually really looking to be able to use in situations, not have to utilize him too much, but in the situations where they can go in and rotate fresh guys in and out to basically keep the offense on their heels. Because then when they go and you continually have a different front 4 and they don't know who's blocking who, that's going to create a lot of problems for the opposing team's offense, which is why the New York Jets switching to a 4-3 is going to be more of a blessing in disguise, and why I think they really should have, done the 4-3 last year. But, who am I? I'm just a fan. So, Connor, overall, as we shift our focus from the team aspect to now the coaching aspect, how do you think that Robert Salah is going to react now? He's getting thrown headfirst into the fire. Okay, you got the first matchup you got against Carolina. Okay, I mean, I know obviously he's gonna get to cut his teeth in preseason first, obviously. But what's your overall assessment of Robert Salah and the coaching staff?
Well, what I like about Salah is of many things, but is that he knows what he needs help with, and I think that was probably problem number 1 of a million from Adam Gase, is that, they had a thin staff. They had Gase was basically the head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach, whatever Dow Loggins was.
And like temporary GM for a little while, like God.
Yeah, yes.
I think the Jets are the only franchise in history to actually trust probably a crack addict or meth head. Pick your drug of choice. I mean, anytime you see Adam Gase show up with a press conference like, I mean, you gotta be on something, dude. How many lines of coke did you snort before you hit the podium? I mean, seriously.
Well, getting back to Salah, it's just that he really understands what he needs help with. And I think they'll have more game management. I think he'll learn on the job. There will be moments where he's just things that he has not experienced yet because he's been a DC and a linebackers coach and on and on and on. He worked his way up. So I think that, the energy will be right. I don't think he'll overwork guys. I don't think he'll be in your face screaming like a lot of guys are in the NFL. I think he'll take that time to pull guys aside and coach and teach. And guys buy in when you do that. And when you see the results from that teaching, then guys really buy in. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody's bought in with the Jets since the Rex era. And that burned out, right? It got really bad in 2012, 2009, 2010. Guys were all in. Guys thought they were going to win a Super Bowl that year. And rightly so. They came pretty damn close. Todd Bowles had things going a certain way, but it never got across the finish line in terms of guys fully buying in because he didn't have the energy. Gase obviously just nobody was buying in. Everybody wanted out. So I think Salah does a really good job of getting guys to buy in and follow him, and more importantly, develop talent. And it's not going to be perfect this year. I can't say it enough, but I think you can see the step in the right direction to something bigger.
Okay. Fair enough. Gentlemen, anything to add?
Yeah, I think Connor nailed it with the energy, man. I mean, that's it. Like, I said the same thing. Like, I haven't felt this since the Rex Ryan days, like where the coach had you energized, like engaged, like not only the fans, the players, they will run through a brick wall for this guy. We saw so many players like Lawson literally came here.
Cliche now, Harrison.
What's up?
That's cliche now. The media
run
can't
through a
let
wall?
us have that. It'll run
You can't
through
run
a
through a wall
for the guy.
No brick wall?
Let us have that.
Run through a pile of mattresses or some shit. But no, man, I love it. I mean, that's what you want. Like Adam Gase, we talk about the locker room. Like, try to turn a locker room against Rex Ryan. Like, good luck with that. Like, you're not turning a locker room against Robert Salah. Like, the players love him. The fans love him. We got his get back guy. Like, I'm telling you, I think that Patriot game, when he starts going nuts on the sideline, like, fans are going to go nuts. They're going to love it.
Yeah, I can't wait because, again, you guys know how I feel about this football team. Until this team goes out there and actually beats somebody, this is a 2-14 football team. We took a lot of flack and a lot of arguments and so on and so forth, going forward. And rightfully so, because, the Johnsons brought Gase in. We all tried to give him the benefit of the doubt after a 7-9 season. It turned out to be a fugazi.
I never gave him the benefit.
Sam Darnold Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold. Basically, he tried to play hero ball every single day, and it was a colossal failure. Okay, and again, as I talked about the offense before, we had an entire offense that was based around Frank Gore, a 37-year-old running back. So, and I'm sorry, that's a recipe for disaster. I don't care if he's a Gase guy. I don't care if Gase wanted his guys. He wants this system. He wants that system. I don't care what he wants. You need to come here and you need to win. And that's why I think that there's tremendous pressure upon Robert Salah to really wash away the stink of losing within the New York Jets franchise, because we could get excited about this guy, that guy, and the other guy. We got excited when C.J. Mosley took the field. And we got 3/4 of the real C.J. Mosley and a half of him at 25%. Just trying to play because it was Monday Night Football, and he was completely and utterly ineffective. So, that being said, how is C.J. Mosley going to come back after the 2-year layoff? Because he better freaking have the bionic groin, dude. Okay? I mean, like, I don't care what it is. Like, he better have adamantium running through his veins. Okay? Because with the time that he's got the opportunity to heal, to train, to properly do everything that he needed to do, plus the energy that Coach Salah is bringing. Yes, I expect there to be some excitement around the Jets this upcoming training camp, and even during preseason. But what I want to see is the results when the rubber meets the road. You guys know how I feel about that, because talk is cheap. We've seen this dog and pony show before, where this is going to be a great offseason, this is going to be a great season, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other thing, and we don't do lots. Okay? So I know I'm sick of it. I know the fans are sick of it. You got fans out there that maybe have only rooted for this team for maybe 10, 12 years, only know the most recent struggles. All right, they don't know the struggles of the 80s. They don't know the struggles of the early 90s. Okay, so now it's getting to the point where we all need to take a look at everything. We all need to take a look at the entire microcosm of this New York Jets franchise, and can we finally wash the stink off where this team could now actually take that step forward to NFL relevancy? And this is going to be the season. And the only requirement that I have for this team, and you guys already know, go 500 in your division. Because in my opinion, you want to really go out with a bang. You beat the Patriots, you beat the Bills, you beat the Dolphins, because the AFC East is going to be the toughest division in football. So, on that note, before I finish my point, I want to actually say goodbye to Mr. Connor Rogers as he needs to leave us. Connor, before you leave, please give out all your social media information so fans of Weapons Hot can follow you, interact with you, etc.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah, at Connor J. Rogers on Twitter. We do the Badlands podcast. If you love the Jet stuff, if you love the draft stuff, everything at Bleacher Report pretty much all year round. It's been a lot of fun, and I love your guys' passion. I really do. It's CJ. It's always good to talk to you. Obviously, nice to meet all of you guys, and I really think it'll be a much better season. I know there's not much of a bar to clear after the last 2 years, especially last year, but I actually think there's some justified optimism.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Twitter, Connor. Thanks for
it's been really awesome having you, man. I'm glad you came on with us.
Anytime, guys. Anytime.
So, Connor, you have the open invitation. Anytime you want to jump on, save that link that I sent you. You're more than welcome. We got a seat. So I got a plane ready for you, brother.
Thanks, fellas. Take it easy.
All right. You take care.
Being here, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Connor J. Rogers joining us tonight on Weapons Hot. I thank him again for the time that he was able to give us. Please, if you get the opportunity, go and give him a follow on social media. And, by all means, interact with him. The man is awesome. That's why we have him on the show. So now I want to finish my point. If you go 500 in your division, you beat the Patriots and their $165 million payroll. You go and you beat the Buffalo Bills, the defending AFC East champions. You go and beat the Miami Dolphins, who a lot of people think are primed to not only make the playoffs, but also make a deep run into the playoffs. If you split with them, that says a lot about the character of your team, in my opinion. Now, Jimmy, I'm going to start with you because I'm curious to hear what you think. And then Harrison, obviously, you're going to follow up the rear because I'm very curious about what you think.
It's all you, Jimmy.
What was the question? Sorry, I had.
Well, I did an interesting thing with CJ Mosley you brought up before, man, that I was thinking.
All right, so then we'll do it in reverse order. Harrison, you take the baton and then pass it over to Jimmy.
Here's what I was thinking with CJ Mosley.
And I'm like, whoops, that's me.
Jesus.
What you got in that drink over there, bro?
Oh.
Some jungle juice?
So,
you remember that? You remember that from college, bro? You remember that jungle juice? Man, when that stuff was made right, 3 glasses, you didn't know what the hell was going on.
So is that iced tea or Long Island iced tea?
No, man, when you think of CJ Mosley, CJ
I'm sorry,
yourself.
okay?
I'm just busting. I'm busting your chops.
But CJ, you made a good point about CJ. He hasn't played in 2 years, and he's closer to 30 than not. And when he was brought in, he gave us about a quarter and a half of unbelievable play. Like, he was up here. He looked unbelievable, like a potential all-star, one of the best players we'd seen in a while. So now he's coming back, like you said, from that injury, 2 years rested. My feeling and my take on this is he set that bar here in 2019, which means fans are expecting him to come in at here, which means even if he comes in and plays average, they're going to kill him because it's not going to be enough. He set that bar in the beginning of 2019, and rightfully so. He's making a ton of money. He's one of the highest paid middle linebackers right now. So it's a very interesting situation because he's so high paid, because he was out for so long, and because he set the bar so high. I'm thinking that if he doesn't come on at the same level, you're going to see a lot of people turn on him, I think.
So, all right, Jimmy, your thoughts?
CJ, I want to keep him. The fact of the matter is we have a chance to see what he can do for $7.5 million. That's not a bad deal. If the rumors are true and they are shopping him from a business standpoint, I completely understand, because this is the last albatross contract from the Maccagnan era.
Mm-hmm.
Get out from under that, we're free and clear, and it's all Joe Douglas contracts from there on out. And he's been doing a pretty damn good job of that so far, So I like our financial future. I like the hands that our financial future is in. I want to see what CJ can do, but if they shop him, I don't believe that there aren't Jets fans that can be legitimately upset about it if he gets traded. And here's why. I think that everybody have to admit, whether you like all of Joe Douglas's moves or not, you have to admit that he has not given any single one of us a reason to doubt his commitment to the organization or to make the best decision for the best of the team, like with the team's best interest. He's never given us any reason to doubt that he does that. So if they decide to trade CJ Mosley, then we all have to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that that is going to be for the what's best for the team. So either way, like I said, from a fan's perspective, I really want to see CJ. I think Harrison made a phenomenal point that he's going to have to come out and ball out like he did against Buffalo. Otherwise, everybody's going to be like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
So,
and it comes down to depth too, man. If you think about it, like it comes down to what you can get for him. And if you like the options you have at linebacker, because as you guys know, like Connor mentioned, I love the guys we drafted, like those hybrid Keanu Neal type linebackers, Jamian Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin. Love those picks. If they really pan out as hybrid outside linebackers, the Jets keep talking about how good Gerard Davis looks. They're saying he looks like the first round pick he was supposed to be. If he looks good, and so do those guys, and then someone comes around and offers like a second or even, God forbid, a first for CJ Mosley, you pull the trigger in that situation.
You would have to. If you're getting a second or a first, yes, you definitely.
And the talent is there. Someone might be willing to take the risk like that. And again, it comes down to how good Gerard Davis looks when pad goes on, because people said he could be that middle linebacker type. And I really honestly think Sherwood and Nasruddin could be those outside guys. So it comes down to that and what you're going to get from Mosley.
And it's like what I said on Green Bean's show. We talked about the CJ Mosley rumors, and he kind of threw out a speculation. What if it's a third round pick? And then the whole chat, not a single one said they would take the deal. I did. I said I would take a third round pick for.
Well, how much money are they taking? That's what it would come down to. Like, if you take a third round pick, are you eating more?
If we cut CJ Mosley, $22 million becomes due right now. If we trade him, then we're out of it for only $6 million. The rest of his signing bonus.
How much is the signing bonus?
He had.
It's big, isn't it?
Yeah, but
it was a big ass bonus.
No, his signing bonus was like 15, and we've already paid like 7 or 8 of that, something like that.
Okay, that's interesting.
I
didn't realize
it was the contract again.
Yeah, I look at the number. I didn't realize it was that big a jump. Like, when say you're saying it'd be 22 million if he was cut or something, but only 6 if he was traded.
That's his dead cap if we cut, but the dead cap doesn't hit you if you trade. So if the other 3 guys really show up in pads, I might take a third, depending. Maybe I just think that with the high dollar amount that he has left on his contract, that's going to decrease the cap value or the draft capital value. So I would think a second. I would definitely say yes to a first, no question. Say yes to. I would even say yes to a third, but. Like I said, it's just a matter of, are we going to get the same guy that we saw, and is he going to be able to do it for 17 games?
Yeah, and if we do, that's going to be a big factor. Like once the pad goes on in preseason, if he's just gangbusters, like making every single tackle, then the whole conversation is going to be Mosley's the guy.
But if he's able to put it on the field, he's worth every dollar.
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
the thing.
So well, you make a good point. It's like a win-win. It's like either he puts it together and is great, or he's not. The other guys hopefully shine, and maybe we can get something for him.
Well, so here's how we can break it down. So we take care of a lot of the guaranteed money this year, the $7.5 million that we're paying him this year. So it's really inexpensive for us to see what CJ Mosley can do for the 2021 season. Now, if at the end of the season he's not what we want, then the kind of the golden parachute on this deal is, in terms of a trade, the contract has a 2023 opt-out where whoever has him only has to pay $1 million, and they can opt out of the remaining 2 years of his deal after 2023. So if somebody believes that CJ Mosley would be a great fit for them and want to pay the 22 million or no, I'm sorry, it's like 17 or 18 million for next year, and they want to take a bite out of that, because the golden parachute for them would be that if it doesn't work out, then they're out 18 million, but they can get out of the contract for $1 million after that.
Interesting. All right, Jimmy, I'm going to have you put your GM hat on as we're starting to come up against it. I think this will be a perfect finishing touch. All right, so say the Jets are, I don't know, trading deadline is when?
Week 8.
Okay.
Yeah, about that.
So trading deadline is week 8. Say the Jets are 2-5. So you trading CJ Mosley?
100% trading CJ Mosley. 100%. Because obviously the defense isn't doing what the defense needs to do for their part. You know, I'm not going to put it all on them, but they're not doing what they need to do. I guess a lot of it would depend on how we're 2-5. You know, if we're 2-5 in less than 1 score games and the offense is what's the issue, then probably maybe not. What's CJ's stat line looking like? Is he staying on the field? Is he healthy? But if we're 2-5 and it's kind of an even split between offense and defense, then I am going to try to get out of that contract, because I'm going to want as many dollars as I can find for next year. So yeah, CJ would have to go at that point.
All right, what about you, Harrison?
I mean, I don't even want to imagine being 2-5, man. Like, I don't even want to think about that.
I know.
It's tough
nobody
to
wants
think about. Like,
but you want to know something? This is the reality of the situation. Okay, the NFL is not sunshine and rainbows. We're not talking about Zach Wilson stepping into a 2008-2009 team that's ready to make a deep run in the playoffs like Mark Sanchez did when he was drafted. So we have to be realistic. As much as we want to be optimistic, we also need to be realistic.
I mean, I think this team is pretty stacked. I mean, obviously, yeah, we're not at the level of like the studs at that point, but we talked about, you know, what we've done at receiver, running back, the defensive front seven. I think you guys know, I think Zach is 100% the guy. I think he's going to come out and really blow people away. And like he has in OTAs, be good quick. Like I really do. But if we're 2-5, I think like Jimmy said, it comes down to why you're 2-5. Is it the defense's fault? Like is CJ Mosley having 12 tackles a game and you guys are 2-5? Like what's happening? But I mean, honestly, I think, again, it really comes down to those two things I was saying before, that how do the linebackers look without him? Like, is Gerard Davis looking like a viable middle linebacker? Have the two rookies started to look good? And what can you get for him? Like, I mean, if you're 2-5, I guess at that point, maybe I'd be willing to take a little less. Like if we're 2-5 and the team looks awful and he's not looking good, and that's the key, like he doesn't look good either, maybe I would take a 4th or a 5th. You know, just because he's not in the future plans of the team, he's starting to get up there. And clearly, if we're 2-5, like, you know, like you're saying, CJ, Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, you got to take the baby steps. It's why Joe Douglas demanded a 6-year deal. It's why Robert Salah took a 6-year deal. And Zach Wilson's a rookie. I mean, I hope he's great this year, but it may take a season or two. So I think, yeah, we're in that position at that point, and he doesn't look good as well as the defense doesn't look good. I might take a lower pick. I might go with a 4th or 5th.
Well, you also have to remember that CJ Mosley, for better or worse, was a free agent pickup, and he's not a spring chicken anymore. And if he gets to the end of his contract, he'll be in his 30s. So it's not a situation where we're going to be re-signing him to another long-term deal. This was his cash cow. And if it's just not working, especially because it was a previous regime, if it's just not working, then you just got to cut bait.
Yeah. I think that might sound like the thing. Now I'm going to put my GM hat on, and I agree with both of you gentlemen. I think that if the Jets are 2-5 and they're struggling, that's where now I'm taking a look around the roster, and any players with high contracts, you're going to be a target in which we're going to give you a quote unquote golden parachute. Sort of like a Jamison Crowder. Okay, if we're 2-5 and Jamison Crowder is out there and you give him an opportunity to go and play for a playoff caliber team in which maybe he can see the playoffs and make a deep run, you make a trade. You get that 4th round pick. You get that 5th round pick or whatever. You get some sort of compensation for him. Same thing with CJ Mosley. You go ahead and you get that compensation for him, because at this point, that's when the rest of the season, you are now in developmental mode. Whereas wins and losses don't matter. Where you places no matter. Go out there and show me what you can do. And again, this goes back to what I've been saying. I know you guys have been laughing at me about this, but this is the reason why I'm saying it. Show me you can play 60 minutes of competent football. Show me a coaching staff that can utilize its personnel efficiently and proficiently to give the football team the best chance to win each and every day, regardless of how much you're losing by. And what is the morale of this team going to be like? What is the character of this team going to be like down the stretch? Are we going to get a squad like we saw last year with Adam Gase, where the football team was losing at halftime and guys basically just didn't give a damn and they quit in the second half? Are we going to see Are we going to start to see receivers quit on routes? Are we going to start to see, defensive linemen not press as hard as they can, and we're just giving up points in bunches because we can't get to the quarterback? We have no pass rush. So these are all things that I take into consideration when I say the Jets may win between 5 and 7 games this year. Because I'm not looking at it like you guys. You guys are looking at the schedule.
Yeah, I said 6-8.
You're like, Jimmy was picking, 10 wins, which he feels is realistic. I'm not up on 11 wins. Okay, so
I hope so.
He's picking that. He feels optimistic about that, which is cool. I'm cool with that. This is where I sit, and I want you guys to understand why I'm in the spot that I'm in when I look at this team. So that being said, we are now just about out of time. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone who has tuned in to Weapons Hot, a New York Jets fan broadcast here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You can follow the show on Twitter at CNC Jets Factor. You can follow me at JetsFan0523. My partners in crime, Mr. Kevin Jackson, a.k.a. Spotty Blackman, who could not be with us tonight, Mr. Jimmy the Reaper Jardine at Jets by Jimmy, Mr. Harrison the Fireball Blazer at NY Jets TF Media. Don't forget to go to the Facebook page, message us, we'll message you right back. We love going back and forth with other fans about this team. Also, leave us some feedback about how we're doing here on Weapons Hot, because the only way we can get better is if we hear from all of you. Again, don't forget to go to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. That's where you can find us. Download their app. It's available for both Google Play and iOS, in which you can not only catch Weapons Hot, but you can also catch a plethora of other sports shows there covering every single major sport. On that note, for Harrison the Fireball Blazer, Jimmy the Reaper Jardine, and Mr. Kevin Spotty Blackman Jackson, who is not here this evening, my name is CJ the Painkiller D. Simone, and we are going to sign off for this evening. We will see you guys when we see you guys. Peace, love, go Jets. And I'm going to leave you tonight, which still, in my opinion, is the best chant in the National Football League. Wise Guys is coming up next on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and Weapons Hot After Dark will be going live at 8:35 on YouTube.com. Don't forget to check us out. Again, peace, love, go Jets. We'll see you guys next week.